Hello Winning fans, it's the week of Black Myth Wukong, one of the most hyped Souls-like titles, as well as Gamescom, the biggest gaming convention in the world, so understandably so, some indie developers have decided to push their release out of this week, but as always, there are awesome indie games coming out, such as Rise Eterna War, a spin-off prequel to the turn-based tactical RPG Rise Eterna from 2021, and instead of being a grid-based tactics title, it is a side-scrolling tug-of-war strategy game instead. There are deck building and RPG elements as you power up your troops and select which to deploy, having some good pixel art as well. This next title might be not so indie, since it comes to us from the producer of Rune Factory and Story of Seasons, and their latest release is Elrentaros Wanderings, an action-adventure RPG with a charming visual style that is reminiscent of games on the 3DS for better or worse. Personally, I do like it, and looks to be similar enough to Rune Factory, only with a decreased emphasis on farming and an increased one on combat and dungeon crawling, although there are still partner characters which you can romance and thus look like fun. This video is brought to you by Marko Beyond Brief, a Metroidvania that draws upon Slavic fairy tales, telling a story of a hero having to fight his way through the world to stop entropy itself. This is a hand-drawn title that is very well done in terms of visuals, as we explore the land of Zagora, which takes the form of a huge interconnected map with hundreds of rooms, and critically allows you to explore in a non-linear fashion, with backtracking that this genre is known for, along with plenty of secrets to discover. Combat will also be the focus, with a variety of combat abilities and elemental powers as you take on ferocious enemies and bosses. This releases on Steam on September 17th, 2024, so wishlist the game via the link in the description below. There are a couple of curious releases which have Sunday as their release date, which is not common at all, which I suspect might be due to time zone issues, but anyway, a neat looking title is Cat Bait. This is a pixel art bullet heaven roguelite, but with a twist, since you play as the bait for the enemy, having to kite them around and avoid their attacks, while the other helper cats, stationed on the town walls, fire away at enemies. As such, it's a different take on the idea, although I do wonder how fun dodging will be as a central mechanic, which historically has not done that well in games since it is rather passive. However, the helper cats can get power-ups and might just end up blanketing the screen in projectiles anyway, which should still give you that dopamine hit, but the adorable look makes it one of interest.
The curious soul dares to wander into my sanctum, the last bastion of true art in this forsaken world.
The other Sunday release of interest is Beyond Hanwell, a pretty looking title which I'm guessing is due to Unreal Engine 5 again, in which this is a first-person shooter but with more survival horror elements. You are exploring a twisted version of Westminster, London, which has now become filled with anomalies, having to carefully search for resources and ammo and to use them in any way possible to take out your enemies. It does appear that you can kill these monsters, but for how long I wonder, with the trailer at least appearing to encourage combat rather than running away, although you do have more creative ways of dealing with enemies like electricity or fire. It's probably not for fans of clean pens, but if you love horror games, give this a look, with there being a free prologue named Beyond Hanwell Teaser, the Royal Helmshire being available on Steam, so give that a go. Love indie games? Sign up to my newsletter to get a weekly dose of what's hot, along with some news and of course, weekly game giveaways, so if interested, link is in the description below. A very pretty hand-drawn narrative puzzle adventure game is Sunset Hills, one that stars an anthropomorphic dog which is travelling by train to various cities. He is a novelist and is experiencing the local culture, but the twist is that he was a soldier in a war which is now over, and he has since been discharged, but looks to meet up with his old war buddies to reminisce about the good old days, along with the larger purpose of this trip being revealed as the game goes on. This plays like a point-and-click adventure game in which you are walking around, talking to characters, picking up key items, solving puzzles and so on, with the intricately detailed backgrounds and environments being one of the highlights, as well as the animation and character expressions. The world and setting does remind me of a Professor Layton game, and while it looks very cozy, there might be some darker undertones due to the war motif, leading to a more emotional tale than it might first let on, but still, it looks like a story worth experiencing. Another point-and-click adventure game of interest this week is 3 Minutes to Midnight, a game that is about as classically designed as it can get in terms of gameplay and has an intriguing story as well. The game literally opens with a bang, in which an explosion has occurred which woke up the people of the town, and then they realize that they have no idea who they even are since their memories have been wiped clean. Our protagonist is Betty, in which we join her in figuring out what is going on, having a cast of interesting characters like a power-hungry mayor, a sheriff obsessed with the supernatural, and a kraken who doesn't read the fine print. So how's that for intriguing? The larger story involves a doomsday plot that will kill everyone, so it is up to you to save the day. Interestingly, there will be multiple solutions to every puzzle, so you are not railroaded into any one particular solution, but watch out, there are multiple endings as well depending on your actions. It has full English voice acting, which seems pretty good based on the trailer, where it looks like the developers have created quite the intriguing story that is filled with secrets. Cyberpunk fans, this one's for you. CyberCorp is a top-down isometric looter shooter with this exact theme, in which you play as a CyberCorp fighter, remotely controlling a combat shell, using it to bring order back to the streets. From the look and feel of this game, it sure does evoke Diablo, and perhaps to a lesser extent, The Ascent, with the developer citing The Division, Warframe and Destiny as inspiration, with that kind of looter-shooter gameplay loop. But of course, this is from an indie team, so do keep your expectations in check. I'm interested in the structure of this game, whether or not there will be a story campaign, or if it is just about running missions, with the 3 games that they mention requiring huge teams to maintain and update, so good luck to the developers with this one. Here's a cute looking game named Dodge Barrage, in which anthropomorphic animals are playing dodgeball, and of course has local multiplayer support for up to 4 players. Interestingly, this is a little bit more involved as compared to a regular party game, since it draws upon fighting games itself, so every move available to you has an equivalent counter move that your opponent can use. Also, there appears to be somewhat of a high skill ceiling, since you can do things like parry their ball with your own, as well as spike the ball from up in the air, charge a power throw, tackle opponents to snatch the ball, or even to bounce a throw off a wall with physics in order to hit your opponent. While there are 7 characters, I believe they all play the same, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue, and also has 3 maps and 11 game modes for maximum variety, so get this for your next session with friends. This next title is fairly highly anticipated and has an interesting pedigree, since Dustborn is one part narrative adventure game and one part action title, in which our crew is on a road trip across the divided states of America, having to deliver an important package for your mysterious employer, with your cover story being that you are a travelling punk rock band trying to make it to their next gig. Words have power in this game, both from furthering relationships with your crew, convincing people, but also directly in combat, since your shouts can be used to take down enemies. There's also variety, such as playing baseball to take down helicopters, or to throw Molotov cocktails from a bike, looking like quite the interesting mix of ideas. This comes to us from the developer of Dreamfall Chapters, the latest entry in the beloved adventure game series, so at first glance, I assumed this game was like Life is Strange, but the combat element is different and might be of interest to you. A game which is supposed to be completely free is FELLCHASER, an action roguelite in which you have stolen Death's scythe and must now escape purgatory by reaping hordes of monsters. Refreshingly, this is not another Vampire Survivors inspired title, instead having more self-contained arenas with a more regular number of enemies, incorporating the node-based exploration on the map from Slay the Spire and looks neat. Although in terms of semantics, it self-describes as a HD 2D game but is not pixel art, and apparently Square Enix has trademarked that term to mean games like Octopath Traveler, and while this is not pixel art, I do think that there's something to this game, so for free, why not check it out? Another promising title is Iron Diamond, a Metroidvania with a hand-drawn art style that looks okay, where you play as a weaponized iron extractor with a scorpion tail-like appendage, making a way across a non-linear world, searching for a valuable mineral deposit named the Iron Diamond. While not exactly the prettiest, there's a charm to the art style, so I hope it controls well since it does look like fun and does have more than meets the eye. For example, there are 17 unique areas or biomes to explore, which have their share of spikes and platforming challenges, which are not just limited to jumping, but also includes climbing, dashing, grappling, pogoing, hanging, leaping, and more. Similar to the charm system in Hollow Knight, there are 20 rooms available, this time more directly tied to abilities, and thus have items as well. There's a fast travel system for easy exploration and backtracking, over a dozen bosses and combat with both melee and range options, where melee is not limited to a regular strike but also uppercut, ground slam and more. As such, it does look very ambitious and could be kind of cool, making it the hidden gem of the week. Orbs of Chaos made the list since I wanted to use the meme, but on a more serious note, this is another bullet heaven roguelite, but with the twist being that you're able to select 3 orbs for every run to create 10 overpowered spells. The pixel art is minimalist but effective, with the screen clearing attacks looking great as usual, but I do love to see systems like this with the different permutations of orbs, since you're able to see how each of them work individually. Here's an interesting title that might be following in the footsteps of the Eternal Castle Remastered, since Perfect Hand of Nostalpix Remaster is supposed to be a remaster of a game from 1989, but I cannot find anything about the original online, so take that how you will, but this is a monster taming collectible card game that looks neat, drawing upon Pocket Crystal League, which you can find on itch.io, as well as Inscription, where I do love my Pokemon, so this is of interest. A perhaps unimaginatively named title is TDS Tower Defense Strategy, being a 3D tower defense game in which terrain and elevation matters. It has quite an interesting look, mixing the 2D sprites of your character and allies with the 3D voxel structures and enemies. It does of course have active elements, since the player avatar can mine resources, fight enemies and construct defenses, looking like it's for fans of the genre. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. The top 5 begins with Once Upon a Rogue's Tale, a fairy tale roguelite deck builder with an awesome art style in which rolling dice determines which cards you can play during the round. The worlds of the different fairy tales have been mixed together, which sees crossovers between Little Red Riding Hood, Jack and the Beanstalk and more, along with other characters, creatures, monsters and items that you would know from these stories. The developer talks about a central theme of good and evil as well, where characters are not by default on any one side, so you can turn villains into allies or to turn your hero into a villain, adding another layer to this game, so let's see how this does in early access. I've had my eye on this game for a little while since Finding Mosey looks cute, being an open-world action exploration title about searching for your missing cat. The wobbly movement of the character reminds me of Gang Beasts, but it is not all wholesome exploration fun times, but rather has combat as well, you do have some options of dealing with enemies and scenarios that is not just limited to fighting, being able to sneak around and use stealth, or even to talk your way through, so it's a cool, weird thing that I'm interested to learn more about. I'm not sure how much content there will be in this game, as well as the narrative outside of go find your cat, but it does state that fans of Breath of the Wild, Goat Simulator and Outer Wilds might be interested in this, so of course I'm eager to find out more. I've been looking forward to this next title for quite a while, since Mika and the Witch's Mountain is an awesome, cozy looking exploration game in which you play as an aspiring witch, delivering packages to the people on the island so that you can upgrade your broom to ultimately get to the top of the mountain. It does draw upon the Studio Ghibli classic Kiki's Delivery Service in terms of concept, and feels like it might have bits of a short hike in this game as well, where flying around on the island and exploring looks very pleasant. Interestingly, this will be an early access release, but wait, don't write it off just yet. The main content of this game is in and should be fully playable from start to finish, but they are planning to add more stuff like the ability to pet animals, new side missions, a fishing mini-game, more cosmetics and collectibles, proper dungeons and more language support, which is targeted to be complete within 6 months. So it's kind of a weird release, since in my opinion, the optics would be better for a normal release, with the additional stuff coming as free content updates, so let's see about the reception. However, this game is a Kickstarter darling, having raised over 1.3 million euros during its campaign, so I would hazard a guess that the developer already considers this a success, but still, I hope this lives up to the hype. Indonesian developer Game Changer Studio has been killing it with this series of games, beginning with My Lovely Daughter in 2018, My Lovely Wife from 2022, and now My Lovely Empress in 2024. Looking to be their biggest and most ambitious title to date. The first two games were management simulation titles in which you went to unspeakable lengths to resurrect your daughter or wife through dark magic, through the creation of homunculi, raising them and then murdering them for their souls in the first, and kind of the same thing but with succubi in the second, being part visual novel, part dating sim, and are generally disturbing titles. As you might have deduced from the name of this game, you play as the Emperor of the Crimson Kingdom who has tragically lost his Empress, having to ensure the prosperity of your people, develop relationships with other kingdoms and rulers, balance internal factions, and to ultimately reap the souls of all your people to resurrect the Empress. To do so, you can summon Yao Guai, inspired by Southeast Asian and Eastern mythology, which directly translates in English to fiend, supernatural creatures with a taste for human blood. But you can also betray them to be used as a sacrifice. As such, the kingdom management aspect looks to be the most ambitious gameplay system that they have come up with, and they've taken the art and animations to another level in this game, with the 3D models and watercolor inspired art. I think that this has a tremendous amount of potential, but am interested to see how deep the systems are, and if they are indeed very complex, whether or not that would appeal to the audience of the first two games, since it is quite different, so it's a curiosity for sure. The next game from the creator of Gunpoint and Heat Signature has been in development for a little while, which did resurface during the most recent Steam Next Festival with a trailer and demo, and then subsequently exploded in popularity in terms of demo plays and wishlist number, making Tactical Breach Wizards one to watch. There's more of a puzzle element to this game, since it has a 14-hour long story campaign and unique characters, rather than recruiting randomly generated SWAT team wizards. But the writing looks excellent and has a sense of humor and is potential Game of the Year material. Watch this video for the best games of 2024.
Together, there's no threat they can't stop, as long as they can get there by public transport.